L-I-C-K, McGuire, M-C capital G-U-I-R-E, and I am the police chief of the Alexandria, Virginia Police Department. Today is an important day, not only for our officers, investigators, but for our community. This case is very important to me because I understand that gun violence touches home, because when I became police chief here, this is one of the first communities that I went to. I saw the memorial in this community. I also saw what gun violence had did to the citizens in this community. But I also saw promise that the community felt that our officers and our detectives will bring closure by solving this case. And so today is important to talk about what we've done, where we're at, and where we are going. Today, I want to provide an update on the Wythe Street homicide. In doing so, it is important to bring closure to the victims and closure to our community. On September the 19th, in the 1300 block of Wythe Street, Alexandria police officers responded to a shooting that ended up being a homicide. Based on the investigation, it was a purposeful act of gun violence that occurred. This shooting left one Alexandria man deceased. It also left others that were injured. The lives and the families of this shooting and the victims will have been changed forever. An incident like this has a far-reaching effect, leaving neighbors and residents in our community torn and traumatized by needless acts of gun violence. It is with the excellent police work of our officers, our detectives, and the entire community that it also includes our forensic investigators to have brought closure as relates to this case at this point. They have used every available resource that has been available to them to get this case solved. In support of this conversation to inform our community about the actions and the steps that our department has taken, Assistant Chief Raul Pedroso is here to explain the details of the criminal investigation, and also members of our ATF are here to talk about how ballistic evidence aids police departments in solving these types of cases. At this point, I will pass it to our Assistant Chief over Investigations, Raul Pedroso.
Good afternoon. The Criminal Investigations Division of the Alexandria Police Department responded to assist in the investigation of the shooting and homicide that Chief McGuire spoke of. The incident that occurred at 8:14 p.m. on September 19th of 2024 at the 1300 block of Wythe Street resulted in 3 individuals being shot and 1 succumbing to those injuries and being killed. That was a 25-year-old man. One of the other victims, a 46-year-old man who was just standing outside of his apartment on the phone at the time he was shot, and a 15-year-old boy who was grazed. Fortunately, those 2 victims survived. This crime was planned, it was deliberate, and it was violent. Recovered at the scene were several casings, multiple firearms that had been stolen. As a result of the investigation, which included canvases, the use of technology, crime analysis, the execution of multiple search warrants, we've been able to take 3 people into custody. These 3 individuals, who are all juveniles, or they were juveniles at the time of the crime, have been charged with multiple violations of code, including murder by mob, which is the shooting with intent to kill or maim by a mob, malicious wounding by mob, and also possession of a firearm by in the commission of a felony. These individuals that are in custody are being held at various jails locally in the region. This investigation was a result of working very closely with our partners. And one of those partners included the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF. They assisted us in connecting the dots, providing a lead that we were able to use to bring all this evidence together And today, to talk about that, is Assistant Special Agent in charge of the ATF, Mr. Samuel Ward, who I introduce.
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Ward, W-A-R-D. I am currently the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the ATF Washington Field Division. My responsibilities cover the DC Metro groups and the Northern Virginia Criminal Enforcement groups. First of all, I'd like to commend our partners for their excellent work on this investigation and send my condolences to the families of the victims. It's very unfortunate that anyone has to succumb to the dangers of violent gun crime in our community. At ATF, we are dedicated to working side by side our local federal and state partners to combat violent crime, specifically violent gun crime. And one of the most effective and useful tools that we have in order to accomplish that is the use of our National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, otherwise known as NIBIN. The NIBIN system, it basically allows investigators to connect crimes that they may not have previously known about or been aware of because they work in separate jurisdictions. We do this by comparing high-resolution 3D images of scene casings collected from the scenes of shootings, and we compare those to cartridge casings from test-fired firearms that were recovered from violent individuals in the community. This system allows us to compare and contrast those scene casings to the test fires of the recovered firearms to identify potential suspects involved in these crimes. Sometimes that could include multiple individuals who are involved in these shootings, depending on the amount of scene casings and firearms used in each of these crimes. This process, if done quickly and comprehensively, those 2 points are very important, can generate timely and valuable investigative leads for investigators. This allows investigations from across multiple jurisdictions to include state lines to work collaboratively and utilize not only intel but evidence from multiple investigations to not only solve the individual crimes that they are tasked to investigate, but collectively perhaps they can solve multiple shootings and crimes by working together and sharing this information. The process, well, it is kind of simple. It's not an overly complex process. Basically, when a projectile is expelled from a firearm that's discharged, the scene casings have unique characteristics, almost as unique as a fingerprint from a human person. The head stamp, firing pin impression, and extractor marks leave unique characteristics that we can compare high-resolution 3D images together in order to establish a connection between these cases. The initial process starts by collecting scene casings, and they are entered into a machine called a brass tracks, which is quite simply a large camera that takes high-resolution 3D images and stores those into a server. This server, called IBIS, will actually compare and contrast those images and give you a list of possible matches. From that point, we move into step 2 of the process, which is called a correlation analysis, where individuals who are trained, NIBIN technicians, to compare those images on a side-by-side basis to establish if there's a connection between those individual scene casings and characteristics. Once this is done, a lead is generated. That lead is distributed to everyone involved in the process. So every detective who's assigned a case that's connected via NIBIN will receive that NIBIN lead. What are some of the impacts of this? Well, the timely collection and comprehensive collection of these scene casings, in addition to timely processes, are instrumental in providing an investigative lead to a detective. Over the years, ATF has refined this process to utilize NIBIN and ballistic evidence as an investigative tool rather than a forensic tool. In the past, it's often been used on the back end of investigation to confirm if a firearm was connected to a homicide or an event. We have since kind of refined that process in order to produce valuable intelligence leads to detectives on the front end prior to a lot of work being done on those cases. From that point, we're able to use that investigative lead combined with good old-fashioned police work, with detectives rolling up their sleeves, conducting interviews, pulling video surveillance, taking many of the steps that our Alexandria PD identified earlier to solve crime. Basically, at the end of the day, ATF, we support our partners in this mission. We work side by side, our agents in the field, rolling up their sleeves, tackling violent crime head on with our partners. A couple of other things that we offer as part of this, obviously not only are agents working side by side, but we do utilize the NIBIN National Correlation and Training Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and the ATF Center of Excellence, which is also two national facilities that conduct correlations for our partners around the country. The point of this is to expedite as many of the correlations as possible for our partners around the country. It also allows us to have a national level picture view of NIBIN correlations across the country. We are committed to working with our partners, specifically the Alexandria Police Department, to prioritize public safety and meeting violent crime head on. We're looking forward to continued partnership and improving the NIBIN processes in this area. Thank you.
So I just want to close with these final comments. There is no place for gun violence in our community. What's most concerning about this incident, that today I have to stand before our community and say that we are charging 3 juveniles with murder. It's not a proud moment. And the other thing I will say is that, over the last 2 years, our officers have taken approximately 196 guns off the street here in Alexandria. And so I'm asking everyone in this community to ensure that they are taking the steps towards securing their firearms, that we're not leaving guns inside of vehicles, that we're ensuring that we're storing them properly inside our homes in a safe, to not making them accessible. Because when we do not do our due diligence in ensuring that we are not safely storing our firearms, they ultimately can end up in the wrong hands of people. And so I'm open to any questions that any of you may have.
Yeah, I've got a couple, Chief. When were the suspects arrested?
So these young men have been in custody previously as it relates to other charges in surrounding areas. And due to that, we were able to, again later link them to these offenses that occurred here in Alexandria.
When were they identified as the suspects in this case?
It's probably been an ongoing process.
I'm sorry, I've got just, I'm wondering, was there one gun that was used in this incident? Were there multiple firearms that were used, multiple casings from multiple guns?
So there were multiple firearms.
Hi there, Chief Tisha from Fox 5. A couple of quick questions. What are the ages of the defendants, and also what do we know about possible motive?
The ages range from 16 to 17 years of age, and the motive is still kind of evolving. What we do know, again, that it was a purposeful action. We have evidence to support that they intended to engage in the behavior that they did.
Was the 24-year-old man who was killed, was he a target?
That I cannot directly say. I still want you all to know that this is still ongoing, right? There has to be prosecution that is ongoing, but based off of them being purposeful in their actions, I do believe that they were seeking to target that particular location with that particular audience.
Chief, can you just clarify the timeline between September 19th and when you identified these suspects?
So we were just able to recently identify them. And what I mean by that is you heard the ATF talk about ballistic evidence. And I want to emphasize the importance of NIBIN, right? And I know it's a lot to kind of compound, but when we respond to a scene, right, and you have multiple firearms, first of all, our crime scene technicians, they have to collect those shell casings. They have to look at what kind of shell casings are applicable to enter into NIBIN. And what NIBIN does is it matches, like he said, it's a DNA fingerprint. And so if a firearm was used in a case, a previous case that was unsolved in another county, right, or another area, another jurisdiction, we're able to say that this gun is linked back to these other multiple cases as it relates to that.
So, going off of that, any idea how many other instances, any crimes these guns were used by these suspects?
We do know that they were stolen firearms, and we do know that there's a possibility that they could have been used in other cases. What I will say is that there are other ongoing investigations. These people are in custody, and I want to ensure that we are respectful of the kind of processes to reach a full conviction.
Chief, going back to September 19th, did the suspects run up to the victims? Were they in a car? How did it go down?
So they approached them, right?
On foot?
Yes, on foot, and they opened fire on them. Yes.
Yes, Chief. So reading between the lines with what you're saying about, the NIBIN system and that, were they developed as suspects because of some other crime that was traced ballistically to this and then worked backwards to them? Is that what happened?
Yes, that's how NIBIN works. Again, it's kind of like a fingerprint. So, of course, you have to collect those shell casings, right? You enter it into the system. And so I'll just give this example. Let's say, for instance, that there's a crime that's been committed a year from now, right, that you may not have been able to solve, but a weapon has been recovered. And so when you recover weapons, you have to go test fire them, right? And then when you test fire them, then you put it into the system, and it matches that way.
Is that what happened here? So something else happened with one of these weapons that was used?
Yes.
From September to now, in the net system, that was entered into the system, and then that's how these guys were caught?
Yes.
Brian, did you have a question? Thank you.
Just to be clear, were the suspects already in custody, maybe with another jurisdiction? Did you guys identify?
Yes, they have already been in custody.
And I
Yes.
noticed it's malicious wounding. Are there any talks to upgrade the charge at all, or knowing that someone died?
Yeah.
Trying to indulge even?
Yeah, so that will be left up to the Commonwealth Attorney here in Virginia. Our job is to present the facts of the case to the Commonwealth Attorney, and then they will make those decisions reference kind of moving forward with applicable charges.
Chief, were they being held in the juvenile detention center?
Yes, they
So they
are
were
juvenile.
already in custody in Alexandria?
No, they have these offenses, right, are applicable to other areas, and again, I want to be respectful of the other ongoing investigations.
But they've been brought here to the city of Alexandria, the northern.
You can be in custody somewhere else, right, and still be charged.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because these gentlemen were minors at the time of that offense, does their name become public record during this process for the attorney team?
So I don't believe so, and the reason why, again, if we could have showed their photos today, we would have showed their photos. But again, out of respect of the execution of the prosecution and them being minors at that particular time, and then the variance of the age ranges, then we want to respect the Commonwealth Attorney's prosecution should they make a decision to change those charges or upgrade those charges.
Chief, do you have any more details on other crimes these teams that they were in custody for? Or similar to?
Yeah. So I don't have all the details on those cases because, again, they're still ongoing cases. The major thing for me is to bring justice, right? Justice to those that are in the community, justice to those that have been victimized by these offenses. But I also want to respect the prosecutorial process for the Commonwealth Attorney.
Sure, but can you say they are being investigated for other shootings, other violent actions, or what were they being held for?
I'm not going to go into that, but I will tell you that there are other violent actions that they are being investigated for, which is why they were already in custody.
These violent actions, are they outside of Virginia, for instance, D.C., Maryland?
I'm not familiar with any outside of Virginia at this time. Yeah.
We'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank y'all for coming. Appreciate you.
Thank you.